This week, we journey to the ethereal worlds of fives and sevens. Don't let that concern you, though. With a little hard work from you, these things pretty much play themselves. Let's do this. Okay, so how are we going to approach this brave new world? Basically, I'm going to take you through the most simple step of just feeling the accents of 5 and 7 over the quarter note. All right? From there, I'll start off with some very simple hand-foot patterns that you can still use in a musical setting, but that kind of keep the time more in place than the further illusions. Finally, I'll end off with some hand patterns, ride patterns, hi-hat patterns that are a little more complex. And when I say complex, I don't mean out of your reach. I just mean that they add maybe a few more 16ths. Okay? So let's do it. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is just take you through the accent pattern in 5. All right? And you can get an idea of what that sounds like over the quarter note. I'll resolve it ultimately back to beat 1, and this is something that you want to internalize. All right, if you're going to take this stuff to the next level, you have to learn, you have to build the basement first, and the basement is just learning the accent pattern. All right, I will do this at 80 beats a minute. All right, and that's it. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and 4 E and a 1. Okay, so the next step in this is to basically just play those accents with a hi-hat, kick, and snare spread 5 notes apart. All right? So this isn't illusion creating, really. You're just spreading notes 5 notes apart, whereas with 16th notes, and the way, most guys play and most guys learn is that you spread everything 4 notes apart or 2 notes apart. And then in some cases, in triplets, you spread them 3 notes apart. And when you're playing, a pattern that AC/DC might play or something like that, you can be playing 3 16th notes, the accent of 3 notes apart, all right, in a 16th note pattern. So basically all we're doing is we're just separating it now to 5 16th notes apart. So you're not playing in 5/8 or 5/4, you're playing in 4/4, and you're just accenting every 5th note, okay? So I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'll do that at 80 beats a minute, and here we go. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Okay, so there's that example. And you can, of course, bring the tempo up and play it at a higher tempo. When you start getting into this sort of expansive approach, you don't want to be playing these things all over the place all the time. They can come in very handy. And the last thing that I did, that very simple approach, is something that I sometimes play in cover bands and in clubs when there's a breakdown or something like that. And it's very effective. The bands that I play in now understand these sorts of concepts, and they're able to keep track of one. So it creates, just a great explosive release when everybody comes back into the time, So I wouldn't use these things maybe on a first dance at a wedding gig. Might not be, the way to do things, but I'll leave that up to your discretion. And now we're going to move on to a little more complex hi-hat pattern, okay? And I'm going to clamp that out for you first, in time, okay? I'm going to slow the metronome down a little bit so that you can really kind of grasp where I'm playing it and where those 16th notes fall and how the phrase falls against the bar line, okay? So let's do that. Okay, so this is at 60 beats a minute. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there's the hi-hat rhythm in 5. Now I'm going to combine that, and I will have a rough but ready example for you written out. Okay? We'll put the bass drum in, and the snare drum will be playing some ghosted notes as well. Okay? So here we go with that. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Okay, so now I'm going to give you an idea of what that sounds like in triplet. Okay, and I'll have that written out for you as well. Here we go. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Okay, so that completes the 5 note section, all right? Just spreading everything 5 notes apart from each other. Now we're going to deal with 7. 7 is a little bit longer phrase, but that's really all there is to it. So I'm going to go back to the top and what I did with 5s, and I will clap out every 7th accent in 16th notes until it resolves back to beat 1. Here we go. Okay, so here it is at 80 beats a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. A 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing that I did with 5s. We're going to take it to the kit, and we're just going to play 7 notes apart, playing the hi-hat on every bass drum and every snare drum that are spaced 7 notes apart. All right? Here we go. 2, 3, 4. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the slightly more complex pattern, including a few 8th notes and 16th notes. All right, basically it's 2 8th notes spread apart, and then 2 16th notes, and then 2 more 8th notes spread apart, and then 2 more 16th notes, and so on and so forth. I'll have it written out for you and you can check it out there, all right? Okay, so here it is at 60 beats a minute. 2, 3, 4. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 4 E and a 1. Okay, so now we're going to take that hand pattern, apply that to the hi-hat, and add some ghost notes to the snare, backbeats, every 7th note from every downbeat on the bass drum. All right? I'll show you what that looks like, and here we go. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now I'm going to give you an idea of what that sounds like in triplets, spacing everything 7 notes apart with the essential groove that we just played. Okay, here we go. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4. 3, 2, 3, 4. 4, 2, 3, 4. 5, 2, 3, 4. 6, 2, 3, 4. 7, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4. 3, 2, 3, 4. 4, 2, 3, 4. 5, 2, 3, 4. 6, 2, 3, 4. 7, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now I'm just going to give you a demonstration as to how to utilize this in a live musical setting. All right, so I'm just going to go in and out of 5s and 7s and mix them up, and I'll probably add a few from the other lessons that we've done in terms of 3 and triplet or that kind of thing. All right, so here we go. This is at 120. 1, 2. So that about does it for this week. I want to thank you all for tuning in, and I sure hope you got something out of this week's lesson. Although still foundational and basic in terms of spacing and just spreading accents either further apart or closer together, once you start working on these concepts, they will bring your artistry in drumming up exponentially. All right, you can still play these in the bands you play in cover bands or anything like that. I play these in a lot of the cover bands where applicable, and it creates great tension and great release, and everybody has a great time when you start getting into these concepts. All right, I want to give credit where credit is due, and if not all of these things, certainly most of them came out of Gavin Harrison's book, Rhythmic Illusions. Okay, it is an invaluable resource, and he has done an exhaustive job of explaining these concepts in drumming. All right, so you can pick up those books. If you have any questions or you want to sit down with me, you can PM me, you can send me a message on YouTube, anything you want, and we can set up a Skype lesson, whatever works for you. All right, these things, like I said, are free, and I put them out there to you, but if you need some direction, I have no problem doing that. All right, further to that, if you haven't checked out Unsung yet, it's starting to get some legs. Last week's In Conversation was Emery Chords, and we really started to delve deep into some of the civic and national difficulties that music is facing, and we as musicians are facing, and it was an invaluable, once again, conversation that I had with him. Share, subscribe if you can. I would really appreciate that. And the bell for notifications. It just helps me. I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next week.